Okay,
Everybody,
setting up now.
okay. Greg, those are great picks, by the way. Crazy.
Okay, you're live.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the August 4th, 2020 Township Committee meeting. We will now salute the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With liberty and justice for all.
Before we start our meeting, we'd like to have a moment of silence for two individuals. First, for Albert Dombowski, who's known as Whitey. He was an optician in the township of Maplewood for over 50 years, a member of St. Joe's Church, and was beloved by many in the community. We also want to have a moment of silence for Shirley Rice, who was the spouse of Senator Ron Rice, who tragically lost her life today of a massive heart attack. So please join us in a moment of silence for these two individuals. Thank you. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2020 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2019, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Adams,
Yes, here, sorry.
Mr. Daffis,
Here.
Mr. DeLuca,
Here.
Lundberg, Mayor McGee.
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires the meetings of public bodies be open to the public. Whereas Section 7A provides that the governing body has a discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting. And whereas the desire of the governing body to comply with the provision of this act, at the same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner. Now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Maplewood that it does provide, prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrecht, Mayor McGee.
Yes. And thank you, Ms. Fritzen. And good evening again. I will run through the agenda and then we'll proceed with our meeting. We will first have a proclamation acknowledging and celebrating the 100th anniversary, the ratification of the 19th Amendment. From there, we'll recognize our two employees of the month for August, who are Tim Ellis and Ana Guevara Lopez. We will then move on to our first public comment. Please note that this is agenda items only.
Yes.
So if your item is not on the agenda, in terms of your comment, you'll have to wait to the second agenda, the open comment period. And also, again, it's a 3-minute limit. After our first public comment on agenda items only, we'll move into our Board of Health meeting, led by Deputy Mayor and Head of Board of Health, Mr. Daffis. From there, we have a couple of ordinances. We have one on final, which is to amend Chapter 19 of the Code for the Community Board of Police. Essentially, we'll be increasing the membership of that board to allow more people from the community to participate. Then we'll have the introduction of a couple of new ordinances, one relating to zoning and development regulations. Our second ordinance introduction will be regarding the share of flood mitigation facilities which relates to our joint meeting with Essex and Union counties. We'll then move on to several resolutions rather. One supporting the opening of a alternate treatment center. The second one will be to enter into an agreement with Hands Incorporated to purchase and rehabilitate affordable housing opportunity. And then the third one will be to support the Medicare for All Act. After that, we'll have reports from our department. Tonight, we're joined by Mr. Kaloje, our CFO, who will discuss a quarterly report, as well as our tax collection report. Then at that point, we'll hear our administrative reports from Ms. Viveros, our township administrator, Mr. Desiderio, our township attorney, and Ms. Griffin, who is our township clerk. From there, we'll move on to reports by elected officials. We'll hear from Ms. Adams, Mr. Davis, Mr. DeLuca, Mr. Limbrick, and myself. Tonight, we have 6 discussion items. Just to go through them very quickly. We have a potential resolution to support designating the 3rd Friday of June state holiday regarding Juneteenth Day. Also, resolution supporting the school district to include instruction on Juneteenth as part of their learning standards. We have another discussion in support of making certain police records accessible to government documents rather. Then we have a statement in support of Newark's attempt to establish strong civilian review board with subpoena power. We then go into a discussion regarding a resolution to support Medicare for all. And then finally, a discussion to support homeowners and landlord-tenant protection during COVID-19. Our consent agenda is filled with 20 various items, most of them around contracts. One is a contract for design and construction. Another one is a contract closing for 60 Woodland. Another contract is an award for the municipal building roof and HVAC replacement. We will award another contract for our Burnett Avenue road improvements, and we'll be talking about, I think we're doing a virtual town hall regarding that in the near future here. We'll also have a resolution supporting NJ Senate Bill 2656, which is having law enforcement disciplinary records available during the hiring process for municipalities. Moving on through the other resolutions, we have a resolution for the sale of personal property equipment no longer needed by the township. Authorization of the hiring of additional seasonal personnel for our pool. Authorization acceptance of donation to the Maplewood Fire Department from Winchester Gardens. Accepting report of a note sale. Approving improvements completed by 479 Valley Street. Bills and claims. Special item on revenue and appropriation for the Municipal Alliance. Special item on revenue and appropriations for the CARES Act. A resolution closing ADA improvements at 60 Woodland, which is phase 2 of a contract. Then we will also approve our regular session minutes from February, July 8th and July 21st. And then finally, the approval of our closed session minutes from July 21st, which is our last meeting. At that point, we'll move into agenda item number 20, which is public comment on any subject matter. So at that point, if anything you want to discuss for 3 minutes, you are welcome to do as such. And then we will adjourn. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, September 1st, as we will be in recess for the rest of August for the township meeting. So that is our agenda for this evening. And I would now like to turn the floor over to Ms. Adams to read the proclamation.
Thank you very much. Just for the record, I'm wearing my RBG earrings and pin in honor of this proclamation. So this is for the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment. Actually is August 18th, which would have been our second meeting. So I ask that this proclamation be put on today, since we're not meeting on the 18th. So I will say also on the 18th, since we're not having a meeting, we are holding a virtual event for SOMA Celebrates Women. It'll be a watch party beginning at 7:30, and you can go to the Soma Celebrates Women Facebook page and find out all the information on that. We'll be watching Knock Down the House, which is a documentary about the women who, 5 of the women who got elected during the 2018 midterm elections. So thank you. Whereas New Jersey has a rich history in the suffrage movement, joining a federal pursuit of women's right to vote. And whereas in 1776, the New Jersey state constitution allowed women property owners the right to vote, unique in the nation at the time. However, in 1807, the legislature stripped women of their voting rights, limiting the ballot to white males only. Whereas for more than a century thereafter, New Jersey women fought for the reversal of the 1807 legislation. And whereas New Jersey became the 29th state to ratify the 19th Amendment on February 9th, 1920, granting women the right to vote. And whereas shortly after, Margaret Laird and Jenny Van Ness were the first 2 women elected to the New Jersey Assembly in 1921. 4 years later, Rebecca Winston of Estelle Manor was elected New Jersey's first woman mayor. And whereas the 19th Amendment did not guarantee suffrage for all women, including Native Americans who did not gain the right to vote until 1924. For Asian Pacific Islander Americans, it was 1952. African American and Latin Americans suffered voter suppression until the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965 and 1975. And whereas the fact that today women are active in local, state, and national government and are running for office in unprecedented numbers reminds us that we all follow in the footsteps of these resolute American suffragists. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Nancy Adams, Township Committee woman, on behalf of Mayor McGehee and the rest of the Township Committee on this 4th day of August, 2020, recognize and celebrate the 100th anniversary of the passage of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, providing for women's suffrage to the Constitution of the United States. Thank you, Mayor. You're all muted. All that applause is muted. They're all clapping.
I realized that.
Here we go. Well done, Nancy.
Thank you.
Bravo. Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Adams. We'll now move on to our Employee Month spotlights. We have 2 phenomenal employees from the Township of Maplewood that we'd like to honor tonight. And I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. DeLuca.
Thank you, Mayor. Is Tim here? There he is. Okay. So this is a resolution of recognition and appreciation to Timothy Adam Ellis. Whereas the Township of Maplewood has been fortunate to have a dedicated employee and team member in Timothy, we call him Timmy, committed to the mission of our municipality. And whereas we want to recognize Timmy for his commitment to the community of Maplewood and his department peers, who Tim steps up, he addresses or leads projects, he takes on requests and other responsibilities above and beyond. So we thank you for that. And whereas the Township Committee and Township Administrator wish to acknowledge these actions and publicly communicate our appreciation and thank you for the work that Timmy has done to enhance the service provided and the quality of life for the residents of the Township of Maplewood. Therefore, be it resolved that the Maplewood Township Committee recognizes and appreciates the services of staff employee Timothy Adam Ellis, our head custodian, and presents virtually this resolution of appreciation and support to be duly recorded by the Township Committee on this 4th day of the month of August in the year 2020. Congratulations, Timmy.
Thank you.
Timmy.
Oh, Timmy, congrats.
Give me say a few
Yes,
words.
I really appreciate the recognition that was given to me this evening, and great working with the town. I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to stand for, to let you know that I really work hard to make this a good workplace and environment and keeping the place clean. And just thank you for having my services and making me employed in my continuation with the Township of Maplewood. And I also thank the DPW for this moment also, for having me 2020.
Hey, Timmy.
Thank you, Timmy.
I miss seeing you at town hall all the time.
Thank you, Tim.
Timmy, how many years are you with the township? Tell them.
15 years with the township. And just a very dedicated worker for town hall. I'm a very dedicated worker.
Yes, you are, Timmy, and we value you so much, sir. You never say no. You're always available every weekend, all the events that we do. You're really a trooper, and you know everyone's secrets.
Yes. Yes.
Timmy, we thank you, and you know, and we, you know, those hours that we spend there, you know, pre-COVID, and even when we come in for various meetings, you know, you're always there, and you always are, you know, one of the positive reasons why we enjoy coming to town hall. And after those long nights, you know, you're always the last person out. You know, no matter if the meeting is for an hour and a half or 5 hours, you know, you wait, you stay, and you're with us. So you're, you know, you're like, you know, a member of the TC. So we appreciate you and congratulations.
And I appreciate y'all too also, to all the committee members for this day, for, you know, giving me this gratitude to stand for with y'all and be present this day. And continue doing my best to make it a big successful, you know, environment for this place, to keep it clean. And also I like look at this, and I want to show it.
So here's a trivia question from my mates here, my colleagues. Aside from being an incredible employee, right? What is one of Timmy's greatest personal attributes outside of work? Who knows?
Well,
He loves to
will-
eat. He loves to eat.
We all love to eat. Try again. Try again.
Well, I know that Timmy is a connoisseur of great music, because we talk about different, you know, old school tunes and things like that. So he knows his music.
He sure does. And you know what? He knows how to groove to that music. He can tear up a dance. So Timmy, you're one incredible dancer, my friend. All right.
Yes,
Thank you.
What about the ambassador's chicken?
yes. Ambassador Chicken also.
Oh, man. Well, Timmy, again, thank you for everything. We appreciate you. And hang tight. I know you'll be there with Liz. And so we're going to also recognize a dear friend of yours. And so I'd like to turn the floor over to Ms. Riveros.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Not now. You're on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute.
Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah.
This resolution is in English, but I'm gonna try my best to not butcher it and say some words in Spanish. That's only my third language, not first or second. Resolution of recognition, appreciation. Ana Ruth Guevara Lopez. Whereas the Township of Maplewood, La Ciudad de Maplewood, has been fortunate to have a dedicated employee, quiero una trabajadora dedicada para la ciudad, Ana, committed to the mission of our municipality. Whereas we want to recognize this employee for their commitment to the community of Maplewood and fellow department peers by stepping up and addressing or leading projects, requests, or taking on responsibilities above and beyond. Quiere reconocer Ana para su dedicación para ayudar los departamentos. Whereas the Township Committee and Township Administrator, la Township Committee, quiero reconocer a usted, acknowledge that these actions and publicly communicate our appreciation and thank you for the work that Anna has done to enhance the service and provided a quality of life for the residents of the Township of Maplewood. Dar gracias a usted para ayudar todos los residentes de Maplewood. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Maplewood Township Committee recognizes and appreciates the service of staff employee Ana Ruth Guevara Lopez, custodian, and presents this resolution of appreciation and support to be duly reported by the Township Committee on the 4th day of the month of August in the year 2020. Gracias, Ana.
Muchas gracias, Ana. Esté bien.
Thank you so much. Gracias a todos por darme la oportunidad. Venga, que tengo mi traductor aquí.
Ah, venga, hola.
Quiero darles las gracias, dígales así. Quiero darles las gracias por darme la oportunidad de trabajar en ese excelente municipio.
She wants to thank you for giving her the opportunity to work in this great community.
Y en DPW que me han enseñado tanto.
And DPW because they helped her learn a lot of stuff.
Yo soy feliz trabajando con todos ustedes. Todos son unas grandes personas.
She loves working with you all.
Soy feliz.
And she's really happy working with you.
Thank you. Gracias, Ana.
Muchas gracias a todos. Los quiero mucho y gracias nuevamente.
Muy bien.
Gracias, Ana. Saludos.
Ana knows secrets too, but in Spanish.
Thank you, Ana. Muchas gracias. We really thank you. Appreciate you very much. And Ana and Tim together, you know, when we had the election, the primary election, they did a phenomenal job with everything being COVID, making sure that everything was pristine. And also, you know, we have great first responders in our fire, our police. But from a DPW perspective, you talk about putting yourself on the front line. You know, Tim and Ana, every day they're in our facilities cleaning and touching everything. So, you know, they're right there with everybody else as a frontline person, putting themselves and their families at risk to keep our facilities clean so we all can be healthy and safe. So I just want to recognize that too. You're a first responder, Ana, and so is Tim. You're out there touching stuff that a lot of us don't even touch when we're in town hall. So gracias. Muchas gracias, Ana. And thank you.
Dios los bendiga a todos.
She said she's very thankful. Thank you.
You're welcome. De nada. Awesome. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we will we'll move on to our agenda item number 7, our first public comment. Mr. Malowski, do we have any people who want to discuss an agenda item?
I have 2 hands raised. Let me just there. Sorry, one of them is on an older version of Zoom and I can't allow them to talk unless they update. So I'm going to go to the next one. Leah Brash.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, my name's Olivia Brash. Do I still have to give my address?
You're all pre-screened, so I have your address on record.
Oh, okay. So I'd just like to speak on resolution 185-20, which would authorize the purchase of additional computer equipment for the police department. I strongly discourage you from authorizing this purchase. I find it insensitive that, especially during a pandemic, when students partaking in online learning often have limited access to computers and internet, our town continues to invest heavily in providing technology to its police department rather than to community members who need it. Citizens have continually urged you to begin divesting from the police. It is extremely frustrating to me that you continue to provide them with more money and more resources despite our concerns. In the interest of transparency, I also ask that you provide the specific uses of these computers to the public.
Thank you.
And thank you for your comments. If you would like to go to our website, you can read the resolution in detail and you can follow up there. And then after that, if you have more questions, please reach out to us and we'd be happy to connect you with Mr. Kaloje to discuss a little more detail. But please first start with our website and look up the resolution for more detailed regarding the purchase of the equipment. Like anything, regardless if you're a police department or a fire department, things become antiquated. And without proper technology, you cannot do the job which you are about to do, regardless of the situation of funding or defunding. So we as a township committee believe in providing our employees, regardless of police, fire, or whatever, with the proper equipment to do their job. Thank you so much. Any other comments, Glenn?
Yeah, I have one more. And Ms. Gold, you're gonna have to upgrade your version of Zoom to let me unmute you. It won't let me do that. So I'll go to Ms. Torito next. All right, you're on, Sage.
I just wanted to talk about the agenda item 9 regarding the Community Board on Police. I believe that nominee applications should be publicly posted on the website, and a public meeting should be held to discuss nominees and new officials. These nominees should not be required to do a ride along with the police, as this may deter communities more at risk or in fear of police brutality from running for this position.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, would you like to address that one as a co-chair?
I don't have any comments right at this moment, Mayor, but I may address that comment in my elected official report down the road this evening.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Talk about
Glenn.
Thanks.
Okay.
That's all for now, Mayor. I guess Ms. Gold will come back when she upgrades her Zoom platform.
Thank you. Thank you, Glenn. Okay. We'll now close our public comment for the agenda items only and move on to agenda item number 8, which is our Board of Health meeting. Mr. Daffis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll start off with the statement to open the Board of Health meeting for this evening. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of New Jersey, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2020 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2019, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk. Ms. Viveras, can we have a roll call, please? Excuse me, Ms. Fritzen, rather.
You're on mute.
Mr. Adams,
Here.
Mr. DeLuca,
Here.
Mr. Lembrick, Mayor McGehee,
Here.
Mr. Daffis.
Here, thank you.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires all means of public comment to be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the Board of Health has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public in any meeting. And whereas it desires the Maplewood Board of Health to comply with the provisions of this act, same time it conducts its business in an orderly and expeditious manner. Now therefore be resolved by the Maplewood Board of Health, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in deliberations of the Board of Health by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observation of the actions and discussions of the Board of Health at all its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. I'm going to move the approval of the minutes from the July 8th Board of Health meeting. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
You got 4 seconds.
4 seconds. Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll call.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Before I turn the floor over to our Public Health Officer, Candace Davenport, I just want to make a general comment to the community at large. As Ms. Davenport is going to report this evening, and as you may have heard, widely reported in social media and regular news, we are seeing an uptick in transmission in our community and in surrounding communities. Now is the time as a community to come together and to become serious again about taking all necessary precaution. Those are two precautions, both very easy to do. Masking up when outdoors and keeping your distance. Please send this message to our youth. The rise in positivity rate across the state and in our community is showing an alarming positivity rate in our youth population. And while our youth do not tend to get sick and or die, they are major carriers. They are transmitting the disease unknowingly, unwillingly to those who may get sick and or die, even members in their own household. So please, please, I know it's summer. We all are enjoying being outdoors. We are all very exhausted about the pandemic. We are not in a full lockdown right now. However, if we carry on this way, and we are currently seeing numbers that are bringing us back to May, late April. If we continue along this path, we will go into another lockdown. We cannot afford that. Our businesses cannot afford that. Our economy cannot afford that. Our kids cannot afford that. So please, now is the time to take this seriously. And with that, I give the floor to Public Health Officer Davenport. Candace?
Thank you, Mr. Daffis, and thank you, Township Committee. I'm going to share my screen now for the Board of Health presentation.
Candace, can you turn up your mic a little bit? You're hard to hear.
Sure. Is this better?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay, you got it. Let me see now. Sorry. Oops. Sorry, my screen is freezing. Oh my. Hold on. Oh no. My screen is frozen.
There we go, Candace. Looks like it's coming up.
Okay. Okay. So let me share my screen here. Okay. Sorry. I'm not sure why my presentation is not here. Bear with me for 1 second. This should be it here. Okay. Please move this one. Sorry, my apologies. I'm not sure why it's not working. Bear with me for 1 second, please. Can you all see my presentation now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Thank you. My apologies. So I'm just going to move through it this way. Here are your COVID stats and updates for the United States through Maplewood. We are increasing at 4.83 million cases and 159,000 deaths in the United States. In New Jersey, our numbers are also rising at 182,970 cases and 13,982 deaths. In Essex County, it's 19,558 cases and 1,861 deaths. And in Maplewood, we are up to 340 cases with 271 recovered. And unfortunately, we have experienced one new death since my last report. So now we are up to 27 deaths. These numbers are as of today for national and state and local. So as we mentioned, I'm just going to minimize this. As we mentioned, the infectivity rate or replication rate is now increasing. This is information from Governor Murphy's presentation yesterday. So this is the cause for alarm as we're monitoring the trend that we're moving into. Likewise, nationally, there are about 35 states that now have a New Jersey return travel advisory. So if any one of our residents are traveling to these areas, We are now receiving information from our county of residents who are coming into Maplewood, and they are traveling from those states, excuse me, and we are reaching out to them and contacting them to please abide by the voluntary self-quarantine of 14 days upon arrival into New Jersey. So the state's making every effort to reach out to people who are traveling nationally. Along with that is Washington, D.C., as well as Puerto Rico, which is not on this chart.
Hey, Candace, if I may, before you move on here, how many cases have we seen since about a week to 10 days ago, since the last report by the mayor on social media?
So I believe that he reported 337 in his report, so we're up to 340, so 3.
Okay.
So the issue is maybe it's not the quantity, it's the frequency. So in the last month or so, we were receiving maybe 1 or 2 cases every other day or every 2 days, and we were getting this nice respite. Now we're seeing a case to almost 3 cases every day. So on average, we're seeing a case a day. So that's concerning. Our highest recently has been a case in 3 days. That could be just reporting from the labs that are being rushed in, but the frequency of daily cases is increasing. So one of the things that we get at Town Hall and in the health department is questions about where people can get COVID testing. Everyone wants to find out their test results, if they're traveling, if they're coming back from a location, if they've been to an event where they thought, maybe I'd just like to find out where we are and get tested. So I just want to say that the FDA has a really great 2.5-minute video of breaking it down in terms of what are the COVID tests available and how do they differ from one another. On their website, they have this nice chart which shows the differences between the molecular test, which is the regular test that we've all been doing, and then the antigen test, which is the much faster or what's known as a rapid test. The molecular test looks at and is looking for the actual virus. The antigen is looking for the protein on the surface of the virus. One is faster, one is not, one is a little bit more accurate, and that would be the molecular or PCR test that we've all been familiar with before. The other test is the antibody test, which we have talked about before, that tells us that you have antibodies in your system, but it doesn't currently tell you if you're currently infected. It just tells you that you've been infected in the past. So if anybody would like more information, they can find it on the FDA website provided here. And I think that it's a really good way of explaining it to people, the differences and what they should be asking for when they ask their healthcare provider at an urgent care center or a med-emerge, or even at our screening at the counties testing what we're offering. And there we're offering the molecular test in various formats. We do saliva or throat or nasal. Just want to bring us to some good news. Thank you so much to the Township Committee for approving and raising awareness about the social distancing ambassadors. So we started on July 25th. We have 6 youth social distancing ambassadors, 3 supervisors, and 1 medical reserve corps volunteer. The social distancing ambassadors are out there on the weekends during the day and on weeknights in the parks throughout Maplewood. The project or the pilot program has been very well received and has had positive experience. Residents come up to the SDAs and say thank you for raising awareness about people wearing face coverings in public. They engage them and ask them, like, when is it appropriate to wear masks in public? And then we give them masks if they need it, and people are receptive to that. More masks are giving out during the week when they're out there in the evenings from 5 to 8 in the parks. Then on the weekends we're out there from like 12 to 2, 12 to 4, depending on the heat, which is very hot during the daytime. And there aren't as many people out there. But we will be at, and they have been already, starting at the farmers market yesterday, we will be at township events like those in the village and the farmers market, just to encourage people that while we are engaging in public activity, which we want you to do, we want you to do it safely. So we encourage social distancing and face mask wearing. Masks are provided through purchase of the township as well as through the Essex Regional Health Commission, who have assisted us in providing us with free masks that we've been giving out. That's a picture. Yes.
I just had a question about, I probably missed it, but when are there ambassadors in the village, in Maplewood Village? Are they on Saturdays or at all during the day?
They are going to be there this weekend during the day in the parks, and in the evenings, Fridays and Saturdays, when we'll be having music in the village. And they'll help with facilitating people to enjoy the music, but keep on strolling. So, and not to stay too close together and cluster. So they will be joining in the village. And those who are in the parks, in the park for Memorial Park, and they're doing their walkthrough, they will go through the village once, if not twice, in the evening and during the day.
Okay, because I continue to see, I mean, it's the third meeting in a row, I'm going to harp on it. I continue to see kids, you know, middle school and high school kids all grouped together with their either no mask on at all or just hanging from their ear while they're all grouped together by the bench, like behind the Claris building, by the entrance to the tunnel, and just wherever kids typically hang out. And I don't know what we have to do, you know, short of beating people over the head, but.
No, and you make a very good point, Ms. Adams. So because the program started just last week, we're trying to figure out when and where's the best place and time to use them. So we will be in the parks, in the village, excuse me, on Friday and Saturday nights now. That's going to be hopefully a bigger help to address this very important issue, because the youth, I can't emphasize it enough, and thank you to Mr. Daffis for saying so, but the youth in our community really have to take this seriously. It is so important that you understand that this cannot be dismissed. You have to wear your face mask. We have occurrences, not necessarily in Maplewood, but around our area and nationally, where we're seeing that people, especially youth, go out and they're having fun and they don't think that they're gonna get sick, but they are unfortunately then getting their family members sick. And then the family members can't go to work. They can't socialize, they are quarantined. It becomes a really big issue. So we ask everyone to please wear your face mask and please stay 6 feet away from each other. These are really two important things that really help. Ms. Adams, I hope I answered your question. Okay. Just gonna minimize this. One of the biggest things that's happening right now is the reopening of schools. So I just wanna let you know that the health division and the school district, as well as the health department in South Orange, we have really been in contact pretty much 3 times a week regarding the SOSD school district reopening. So we are on the task force, both John Festa, who's the health officer in South Orange, and myself. We both sit on the health and wellness and safety subcommittee, but we're also asked to sit in and give input to all the various committees like transportation, disinfecting and cleaning of the facility and all the buildings. So just to give you an example of what we've been talking about in the last 2 months, these are just some of the things that we have provided guidance on. So we're constantly going back and forth between reading CDC documents, state health guidance, bringing it down to the local so that we're all on the same page of where we need to be to protect our kids and staff as we go into school. Let me just provide you some background on contact tracing. I want to emphasize, please answer the call from the Maplewood Public Health Division or the Essex County Health Department and provide information on activities and close contacts. If we're calling you, it's either because you are identified as a positive case for COVID. You would have had a lab test and the result has come to us as the health department. Or you have been identified as a close contact of someone who tested positive. We really ask you to provide us with information. All information is confidential, but it would really help us to control the spread of disease by asking people, the right people, to quarantine and or isolate so that the disease doesn't spread to others.
Ms. Davenport, I have a question on that as well. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're exposed to someone who was exposed to somebody,
mm-hmm.
and then you get tested 3-4 days after, and it's negative,
Mhm.
you still need to quarantine the next 10 days.
Next 14 days, actually.
I
So
mean, after the first 4, like you get tested, it's negative, you still have to quarantine.
yes, you still have to quarantine for those 14 days. So let me just reiterate the scenario. The scenario is that you have come in contact with someone who's positive for COVID. Even if you, we would recommend that if you're wondering if you're positive, you should get tested around between day 3 and 5 from contact. However, if you are negative, it still doesn't mean you don't have to do the quarantine. You have to still do the quarantine because you might be negative on day 5, but on day 7 you are positive, and then you would be spreading it to other people unknowingly, and you know that's not what you want to do. So from the date of contact would be 14 days.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. But these situations are very tricky, so we've been trying to navigate and figure out the best guidance and how to explain it to the school nurses and how to explain it to other people in the public. So this is really important. Just to reiterate, quarantine means you are not sick, but you have been exposed. And so therefore, as we mentioned just now, you have to limit your contact and monitor your symptoms for 14 days. Isolation, however, means that you have tested positive for COVID or are showing signs and symptoms after being exposed. At this point, isolation means you restrict your contact, not just limit, you restrict it. So you are isolated away from even your household contacts to prevent the spread of disease.
So, Ms. Davenport, I want to add one other thing to the contact tracing piece here that you and I talked about earlier today. This is another message to the community at large. As contact tracing is critical in our efforts in getting on top of the virus geographically, knowing where it is and tracing it back. One of the things that we have required, which is required by the public health directives from the state, of all of our outdoor dining establishments that are participating in outdoor dining, one of the things that they attested to when they put in a permit and their permit was approved for outdoor dining is that they would assist us in this contact tracing effort. This is not specific to Maplewood. It's all across the state, wherever outdoor dining is happening. Please, this is a collective effort, a collaboration. Please assist us in that effort. If you are dining at a restaurant and you are not asked for your name and phone number, either in the beginning of your restaurant dining experience or at the end before you pay your bill, please encourage the waiter and or supervisor, manager, whatever, whoever is available to and remind them to do this. This is a requirement of all of our food establishments in outdoor dining, and as Ms. Davenport has explained, is really critical in the effort of getting control over the virus in our community. So if you have not been asked for your name and number, please provide it, and please encourage the wait staff. Of course, our health inspectors, Ms. Davenport herself and her team, and our code enforcement folks are out there spreading this word to all of our establishments. I was at lunch the other day in the village, and I ate at one of my favorite establishments, and you know, I wasn't asked for that information, and I made it very clear to the wait staff, who was probably someone new and not properly trained, that this is a requirement. So we all have a duty here, not just to mask up and keep our distance, but to also help in the effort with contact tracing. So participate when you're asked, and please ask to participate when you're not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jaffes. I also want to mention that the governor yesterday reduced the number of people in an indoor setting. This is brought up because contact tracing is so important. If you don't disclose who you've been in contact with, we can't help the community to control the spread of disease. So it's super important that we inform the public health department, wherever you are, of who you've been in contact with, if it is closer than 6 feet and longer than 10 minutes. So Governor Murphy reduced the number of indoor capacity to 25 people or 25%, whichever one is lesser, as well as requiring masks for all students when we return back to school. These are all measures where we need to control the spread of disease, and the state is really understanding just how much we really need to get a handle on contact tracing and reducing the spread and reducing large gatherings. Moving on to an additional diseases that we're looking at the health division. We have 37 new cases that we've looked at this month, not including COVID-19. We're looking at Lyme disease, hepatitis C, hepatitis B, both chronic and perinatal, and foodborne diseases like shigellosis and giardia. Of year to date, though, we have investigated 466 cases. That's including COVID cases, obviously. Since we've investigated almost 340 plus other cases throughout the year of other diseases like these. Also, to inform the Township Committee, all our child care immunization audits are now completed. They were pretty much completed. We just had a few stragglers, and we're checking in on whether the youngsters had their immunizations, and everyone is now in compliance. When we've gone to visit the 3 childcare centers, they really don't have as many kids there, and they're taking all the precautions that they need to for health and safety. Environmental health reports. So we have started with 2 new seasonal REHS staff. REHS stands for Registered Environmental Health Specialists. We have hired Shahira Morel for seasonal REHS, and Paul Teodoro, who has been on loan to us from the Essex Regional Health Commission. And thankfully, because of them, we've been able to do 28 restaurant inspections this month. In comparison, in June, we were only able to do 5. We did 1 childcare inspection. We've done the kennel inspection. We only have 1 kennel in Maplewood. We've done 4 mobile food truck inspections. Most of those are the ice cream trucks that you see going around in Maplewood. And we have removed vaping products from 12 different locations throughout Maplewood to adhere to the new vaping ordinance in town. Whoopsies. Rodent control. Our REHS, Pete Dillon, has responded to, as of this month, 92 new rodent complaints. You can imagine that we get about 3 a day and 33 revisits. Year to date, we have given out 500 pieces of literature on rodent control to the neighborhoods that have been affected. I want to say a thank you to DPW for assisting us greatly in distributing those to each and every resident in the affected neighborhoods. Lastly, one of the things that we wanted to bring up was the rat control effort. I know some residents were thinking, how do we make this, how does the town help us with controlling the rats? And while we have gone out and done inspections and assisted residents in terms of property maintenance, thank you to code enforcement also, talk of perhaps hiring an exterminator. But one of the things that we are talking about right now is working with building and code enforcement to put in a pre-application for anyone who's doing a demolition or construction in Maplewood. For those, you have to request a dumpster, and anyone who gets a dumpster, we're going to ask them to do some pre-approval and get show a certification that they've done a rodent inspection or put out rodent traps prior to demolition construction. One of the things that I've learned with rodent control is that any type of demolition or construction really does wake up the burrows of the rats, and then they come out. So ideally, preemptively, by putting out rat bait traps beforehand would help to reduce the amount of infestation in the area.
So, Ms. Davenport, this is Mrs. Mayor Frank regarding rodent control. I think that we have some areas that are definitely overpopulated, overrun, if you will, some situations, and I know that Pete and the team are doing doing a great job and using processes, but I'd be open to even getting in some incremental help here, and wanted to know if we could explore that, like maybe getting a third party involved to help us in some key areas that I know that you and I have received communications about, which are just frankly overrun. Can we explore that?
Yes, yeah, we can definitely explore getting that. I'd have to talk to to building, because it does take it takes a while to figure out a good strategy and plan of action. And then who we need to assist neighborhoods, right? Because rat control is really about neighborhoods. It's not just one house, it's a whole area. So we would just have to find the right person and the right plan of action.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I just think that because of COVID, so many people are home.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of trash, a lot of, just people being home, and instead of commuting to school or work or whatever the case may be, that things are accumulating. I mean, we've seen not just rats, all type of animals all over Maplewood, more this year than ever.
Yeah.
It's like the wild kingdom.
It is. It's like wild kingdom out there. So one of the things about COVID, one of the byproducts of it is that because the restaurants were closed, the rats have moved to areas, residential areas in particular, where we are producing trash. So because we've been home and because the restaurants have been closed, they've moved into this area of our homes and are now much more present. And so are we, right? So we're all home and we're now observing, wait, there's a rat in my neighborhood. So we can definitely talk about that.
Great, yeah. So let's definitely tee that up, postmortem this meeting, and put together a strategy. We can find some funding here and get some help for Peter, because I think because residents are home and we have a bad problem, I think we should be a little more assertive to get on top of this one, because we're still got 3-4 months of warm weather, so it can only get worse.
Right.
Okay.
That sounds great. My last bullet on the environmental health report is that we do have an upcoming tattoo and body art parlor that will be coming to Maplewood. This is the first time that we've had a tattoo body art facility in the township of Maplewood. So we would need to create and draft up an ordinance that adopts the state code to which the health department does the inspection and enforcement. And we will be sending that to you for review for next month.
That's terrific. Thanks, Candace. I think Mr. DeLuca is really eager to have his first tattoo done in town. So let's get that done quickly.
Nice.
Within walking distance of my house too.
It's gonna say I love Maplewood, right? Finally, I just want to give you an update on the summer meals program. I think actions speak louder than words, and then in this case, words speak for themselves. So I'll give you a moment to look at some of the messages that have been written by our residents to say thank you to the township, as well as to the Township of Irvington and to the USDA food program. One of the things that we were able to purchase, thanks to our recreation department, who was able to order this, are these nice new flags so that people have been able to identify where we are. We are in Maple Crest Park, on the corner of Essex Road and Boyden Parkway, and we're there 5 days a week, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. every day, Monday to Friday. Thank you to the township committee officials who have been out there to see it firsthand and volunteer. But I think that these messages, and there are more, I just wanted to give you an example of what we have been able to see and the help and the good that we've been able to do through this summer meals program.
Hey, Candace, do you have any numbers? How many meals have we given out already?
Oh, sure. So I'm sorry, math is not my forte, but we give out 150 breakfasts and 150 meals every day. So multiply that by 5 days a week. And we've been doing this since June 29th. So you can imagine how many breakfasts and lunches we've been giving out. I do want to note that anyone who is using or volunteering for this program, we had to be closed this morning because of the impending storm, and we will be closed tomorrow because of the program has to be closed statewide. So because of all the damage that was done in our parks and access and transportation to these locations. So we will be restarting it again on Thursday this week. Okay, that is the end of my report. Thank you very much, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Candace, thank you so much. This is the point where we invite the public to address the Board of Health and to ask any questions. We ask that if you're not speaking, including my colleagues, to please mute yourself. We are receiving a little bit of background feedback somewhere there. So are there members of the public, Glenn, who would like to address the Board of Health?
I see none.
How about my colleagues? Any questions, comments, concerns?
I do want to make one more note, is that when you, as you move forward with the meeting, there is a resolution number 201-20. That's for the approval of Q5 funding and the 2020-2021 Municipal Alliance budget, which has been greatly reduced and modified. So I just want to bring that up to your attention. Once that's been approved, I'll send it out to the county that it's been approved by our township. So I just want to bring that to your attention. Anyone who's not familiar, Municipal Alliance, the Maplewood Public Health Division is the Municipal Alliance entity for the county, which is the government Governor's Council on alcohol and drug prevention. So we are trying to get a little bit of funding to revise the grant for next year, and then work with the little money that we've had to work with. It's like about a third of the money that we've gotten. So thank you.
Candace, thank you for your report as always. It turns out that you were the one with the background noise. I thank you and your team for your remarkable efforts. You remain our frontline defense to this pandemic in our community, and I know that you are working around the clock, even on your day off. Contact tracing, reaching out to folks, helping folks say goodbye, helping folks through testing, and answering lots of questions, as we all are. So thank you. We're very grateful for your service, and you are absolutely incredible. We could not have gotten through this thus far without you. So thank you. With that, I move that we adjourn our Board of Health this evening. We agreed to meet next on the 1st of September. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Fritzen, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Mayor, I turn it back over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis. We'll now move on to agenda item number 7. We have an ordinance on final passage.
Okay, ordinance on final passage, ordinance number 3003-20. An ordinance to amend chapter 19 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Community Board on Police. This ordinance will increase the number of at-large members on the Community Board of Police from 4 to 6 for a total of 9 members.
The ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Does anyone want to speak on increasing the community membership to the Community Board on Police from 4 to 6 adult members?
Mayor, I wanted to say a couple words here in light of the public comment that we received. Can you hear me okay, sir?
Yes, just let me, let's let the public speak first, Mr. Daffis, then we'll have options. Yeah.
Certainly.
Glenn?
I see no public comment at this time.
Thank you. Seeing no one, I will close the hearing. Can I get a motion? Mr. Daffis, actually.
Certainly, Mayor, absolutely. Making sure I'm not muted there. Okay, I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Great. Now we'll have a discussion. Mr. Daffis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to let the public know, including members who are joining us this evening, thank you again for remaining engaged. The Maplewood Community Board on Police is very transparent. Our meetings are public. They're publicly noticed. We invite you to join us. You will have full access to the agenda. You can join our discussion items. So there's nothing but transparency here. Our mission is transparency and accountability in policing and greater policing community relations in our communities. So we're not hiding the ball. In terms of interviewing candidates, we're following the procedure that is common in all volunteer and employee interviewing. And again, those members who are chosen are invited to appear before us. You're invited to be interviewed by the public. You're invited to make public remarks before we move and second their appointment onto any board, including this board. So we are incredibly transparent, and I'm happy to engage with anyone in the public who would like to follow up with me after this meeting tonight for further information about that. We meet next tomorrow evening at 7:30 p.m. We meet every first Wednesday of every month, and unless otherwise noted. Mr. Lembrick, as my co-liaison from the governing body onto the Community Board on Police, would you like to add any remarks yourself, sir?
I would, Deputy Mayor Daffis. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, just two other things I wanted to add in addition to agreeing with everything the Deputy Mayor just stated. Just to address some of the concerns or issues that were raised earlier by the public. One is that in addition to coming before the Township Committee and obviously appearing at all the public meetings of the Community Board on Police, the names of those selected to the Community Board on Police and those who are continuing members are public. That's listed on the Township website. If you go to the Community Board on Police page on the Township website, you can see the names of Deputy Mayor Daffis and myself as the liaisons of the public members of that committee and also of that committee's attorney. So, so that's all out there, again, in the spirit of transparency. Also on the subject of ride-alongs, that came up, and while not particular to this ordinance before us, I think it is important to address that. And understanding of what our police do and how the township is policed is essential to the Community Board on Police's role of reviewing police activity and then making recommendations to the Maplewood Police Department and to the Township Committee with respect to the department. And the idea of ride-alongs actually came along from the working group that collaborated with the township to form the Community Board on Police and draft the ordinance that created the Community Board on Police. And that included many representatives from the community, including several members from each of Soma Justice, Soma Action, the Community Coalition on Race. And the tour of the police department at 1618 Springfield Avenue and the ride-alongs have actually all been praised as really valuable by all of the Community Board on Police members who have all done that. I haven't heard anyone express any reservation about that, and I think that in order for our Community Board on Police to understand the issues that are they're going to be evaluating for the police, I think it's critical that they go out with the police and understand how the police are doing their job, to understand how the township is policed, and just as important, the Community Board brings the perspective from the community of what it's like to be policed in Maplewood. And I think that's, it's important for them to have both perspectives in order to do their job. So I would certainly be in favor of continuing the ride-alongs, continuing the headquarters tour, and just continuing the dialogue that goes on both at meetings and outside of meetings between the members of the Community Board on Police and our department. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Limbrick.
Mr. Mayor,
Any further
to that, if I may, just very quickly.
Sure, Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add, and Mr. Lembrick, thank you. I meant to include that in my comments and I forgot to. As a former public defender, I have to say that one of the most valuable experiences in my being able to adequately represent defendants in their criminal hearings was the police ride-along. The police ride-along is not about going and grabbing a donut with a police officer. It's about actually seeing firsthand how policing works. Our community police board members charge, one of the things that they look at is recommending changes to certain standard operating procedures. The only way to recommend changes to standard operating procedures is to know what our procedure is and not to take it at face value from a cop or the chief himself, but to see it for yourself. So the police ride-alongs are incredibly valuable in that regard and lead to helping our advocacy as we look to better policing in our community and across the nation. Now, that being said, if we do have an applicant who really wants to serve and is particularly sensitive to this issue, we can talk about that. You know, it's not something that would bar someone from eligibility necessarily. We can talk about that. But Mr. Lembrick and I have added a little bit more color to why we do the police ride along. Mr. Lembrick has also added that this police ride along thing that we do with new people who come to serve the board came from the community advocates themselves, who are public defenders and civil rights advocates and people who are looking at better policing in our communities. So it's good to know your facts before you suggest changes, and we will continue this dialogue together as a community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Lembrick, Mayor McGee.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We are now on agenda item number 10. We have introduction of a new ordinance.
Yes, Mayor. Item 10, introduction of new ordinance number 3002-20 is an ordinance to amend chapter 271 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Zoning and Development Regulations. This ordinance will allow the occupancy of an accessory dwelling unit as herein defined in certain residential areas within the township where one person is at least 62 years of age or older.
Mr. Duca, can we have a motion, please?
Yes, Mayor, before I move it, I just want to say this is an ordinance that we voted down at the last meeting because of a desire to send this to the planning board. So we had to rewrite it. We had to also clean it up a little bit in one area, protecting tenants. So this is a new ordinance, and I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and the hearing to be held on September 1st, 2020.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis. Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick, Mayor McGee.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We have another ordinance, agenda item number 11. Introduction of a new ordinance, rather, number 11.
Yes, Mayor. Item number 11, ordinance number 3004-20, bond ordinance providing for the local units allowable share of the flood mitigation facility project of the joint meeting of Essex and Union counties by and in the Township of Maplewood, in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, the local unit appropriating $1,845,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $1,845,000 in bonds or notes to finance the cost thereof.
Mr. Duca, can I get a motion, please?
I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on September 1st, 2020.
Thank you. I'll second. Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick, Mayor McGehee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We are now moving on to agenda item number 12. We have a resolution number 186-20.
Resolution supporting the Terracin, New Jersey's opening of an alternative treatment center, medical marijuana dispensary in the township of Maplewood.
Mr. DeLuca, may I get a motion, please?
Mayor, I move the adoption of this resolution.
Second.
Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We're now moving on to agenda item number 13. We have another resolution, resolution number 195-20.
Yes, Mayor, that's resolution authorizing the Township of Maplewood to enter into an agreement with Housing and Neighborhood Development Services, Inc. to purchase and rehabilitate affordable housing. And
Mr. DeLuca, may I get a motion, please?
Mayor, before I make the motion, I just want to point out, this is in compliance with our agreement with Fair Share Housing that's been approved by the court to provide affordable housing. We included in our program a home ownership opportunity where we are providing funds through HANDS, a neighborhood organization in Orange, New Jersey, to purchase 2 homes, renovate those homes, and sell those homes to a family meeting the affordable housing guidelines. So I'm happy that we were able to work this out with HANDS. We negotiated with it. Affordable Housing Board met with HANDS, and we're ready to move forward. Now we just got to find a house. So that's what we're going to be working on. So I gladly move this resolution.
Second.
Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and thank you, Mr. DeLuca, for the narrative. We're moving on to agenda item number 14. We have another resolution, resolution number 204-20.
Mayor, that's a resolution in support of Medicare for All Act of 2019 and specific to the pandemic, the Healthcare Emergency Guarantee Act of 2020, HR 1384, and HR 6906.
Mr. Daffis, may I get a motion, please?
Certainly, Mayor, if I may make a couple of comments before I move it.
Please.
It's important for the public to know why we're moving these resolutions. There's no doubt that the pandemic has exposed the ever deepening fault line in our nation between the have and have-nots. Perhaps nowhere is that more pervasive than in access to healthcare. We knew that before the pandemic, we had nearly 30 million uninsured in our country. With choking widespread unemployment, when most folks are insured by their employers, this number is sure to double by many estimates out there. And for those who were already in debt due to medical bills, the bankruptcy cliff is coming. Home foreclosures and evictions to follow. The federal government understands this. We're seeing bipartisan support that at least provides everyone the opportunity to access to care. That is what Medicare for All does. We saw the federal government, for instance, swoop in after the pandemic with the CARES Act to, among other things, provide free access to testing for COVID-19 to all, regardless of their ability to pay, regardless of their citizenship status. It took a global pandemic for us to realize that access to care for all is the answer. And now, sir, and my colleagues, my fellow colleagues, is the time to finally do it. It makes economic sense. It will save us money. It's good for business. And we know this as an employer. We recognize how costly it is to provide our valued, hardworking, wonderful employees with access to healthcare. It's also a racial justice issue. People of color make up 42% of the non-elderly US population, yet account for over half of the total non-elderly uninsured population. Latinx and Black people have significantly higher uninsured rates compared to their white counterparts. And medical debt remains a glaring issue for Black Americans. Nearly 1 in 3 Black Americans aged 18 to 64 has past due medical bills. Latinx patients are the most uninsured population in our country. They already comprise much of the workforce that is yet unable to get health coverage through their job. And we know that the Affordable Care Act, as good as it is, has gaps. This is an opportunity to provide not only freedom of choice, but also comprehensive and uniform care without worrying if you're in or out of network, without worrying if one exchange is better than the other, if you're in one state or the other, or if the Supreme Court is gonna outlaw the whole damn thing. So this is a bipartisan solution. It has bipartisan support among Democrats, according to recent polls, 85% support among Republicans at 55%. Americans at large support Medicare for all, according to recent polls, close to 60%. This is no longer a radical idea. This is not any longer revolutionary. It is a necessity. And now is the time. So with that, Mayor and fellow colleagues, I move that we adopt resolution number 20-20 in support of the Medicare for All Act of 2019 and in support of the Healthcare Emergency Guarantee Act of 2020, which our congressional delegation is in support of, which would provide COVID-19 access to healthcare, specific treatment for COVID-19. Do I have a second?
I second all of that.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis and Mr. Limbrick. Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. 3 great resolutions, medical cannabis, affordable housing, healthcare. Great row of resolutions. We'll now move on to agenda item number 15, reports from departments. This evening we'll be hearing from our CFO, Mr. Koloje, who'll provide a summary of our budget report, tax collection report, and also regarding the certification of our award for note sale report. Mr. Koloje, you now have the floor.
Good evening, everyone, in the glow of the darkness on my porch. Ordinarily, I just submit these reports for transparency's sake so that they're memorialized in minutes at a future time. But to briefly go through this, we sold a note and closed on it last week, roughly $16 million. That is about 7.5 million of what we renewed from last year's projects, and then an additional 8.5 million in new projects that we approved in the capital budget and the bond ordinance this year. We got a very favorable rate of roughly a hair above 0.5% interest, considering where the markets were just 2 months ago, where notes were selling for close to 4%. I would say that we did very, very well. Moving on to the tax collection report, a comparison between the first 2 quarters of last year and the first 2 quarters of this year show that we are essentially at the same collection rate that we were in the previous year. So we're doing well there. We won't know until after the grace period closes on August 10th to see how we did in the 3rd quarter. But to date, 60% of our taxes are paid through banks and mortgages and the escrow accounts associated with them. And we have collected from all the major third-party vendors for taxes. So we're off certainly to a good start. From a budget perspective, now that we're out of a temporary budget and have a final adopted budget, the first report has finally been submitted to the governing body. We're pretty much where we should be in terms of salary and wages and in other expenses. There's only one notable area that is of concern, and that is human resources. We're mostly moving towards going over budget on that line item, due basically to lawsuits from employees or former employees against the township. On the revenue side, we're certainly in worse shape than on the appropriation side. Revenues are notably down in municipal court, in recreation, and in parking. And while we certainly don't expect the municipal court to be a money maker for us, it is a component of our budget, and it will underperform this year, as will recreation and parking. Hopefully, towards the end of the year, we will be able to hold down purchasing and have revenues to transfer where necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Kaloje. Would any of my colleagues like to address our CFO? Okay, seeing no one, thank you for your report, Mr. Kaloje. We had the opportunity to read it before this meeting. I have to say that when I read it, I was cautiously optimistic because, as you've already stated, that the numbers so far are looking good with collections. We are aware with the COVID-19 where we are with revenues, and great job, as I told you last week on the note, or 2 weeks ago. Great job on that. So thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing back from you a month from now as we kind of update on where we are on collections. Ms. Riveros, did you want to say anything? I see you popped up on my screen there.
Well, Mayor, just wanted to add.
Sound like God.
We can't have one or the other on. It's bizarre. I apologize. I just wanted to add to that a lot of this, the costs in some of those line items, if you've gotten a chance to look through line by line, there will be some refunding with the CARES Act money that from the county. So we are sending in our second submission this week. And it'll be substantial again, and that'll include some salary and wages, other expenses. So I just wanted to add to that.
Thank you, Ms. Riveros. And yes, for the public, you should know that all the expenses that we are incurring related to COVID-19, we're tracking that, and through work with the county, we are providing those receipts, if you will, because there is funding available to help subsidize these expenses, expenses that have occurred that were not obviously expected. So good point, and thank you for that. Mr. Kaloje, if you don't have power, we hope you get power soon, but if you're just enjoying being outside and enjoy the nice air, and you're welcome to stay around if you like, or if Ms. Riveros would like to have you enjoy the rest of your evening, you're also welcome to do that as well.
Thank you all. Good night.
All right. Good night, and thank you. All right, we'll now move on to agenda item number 16, our administrative reports. We'll hear from our township administrator, Ms. Riveros.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to report that with regard to today's outages, our DPW, our fire personnel, our police personnel, they are out there feverishly making sure that our streets are clear. Please do not touch any live wires. Call the numbers that we sent out to everybody through our mix alerts, through our email blasts. So I would just try to echo that, shelter in place on a day like this, and especially tomorrow too. There's still a lot of cleanup to get done. Mayor, I have a couple of items that I have to go out for requests for proposals and a request for qualifications. The first one is for the energy aggregation. This was about it's with regard to the co-op that 6 towns are part of. We are the lead agency. From what I understand, we might be getting a couple more towns to join the co-op. But as a lead agency, we have to put an RFP out later this month in order to get some pretty good numbers on our energy The second RFQ, request for qualifications for our risk management services and our insurance liability. Those are the people that, the folks that pretty much handle all of our workman's comp, all of our liability, any sort of claims that get through the township. They are the people that go to bat for us, so to speak. The third, I would request that the township committee motion to extend the concession stand. It is not operating this year over at the pool. This is the second year. It's typically a 2-year contract. So because of COVID, I would ask that the township committee entertain extending it, and that next year that Freeman's Fish Market, who is an excellent vendor to us and local eatery and fish market, to have that allowed to continue for next year.
Can I get a motion for that one, please?
I'll move that, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that that the contract for the pool concession stand be extended through next year.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Lembrecht,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and thank you to Freeman's for their flexibility in this situation.
Mayor, I would move the energy aggregation.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrecht,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Ms. Viveros, you have the floor again.
There was also one more, the RFQ for risk management services.
I'll move that.
Second.
Ms. Adams,
Ms. Fritzen, yep.
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrecht,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen.
I just have one more, but maybe Mr. Desiderio wants to go over this one, and that's to reject the bids for the town hall walkway. So Roger, if you want to go ahead and do that one.
Yeah, yes, that's fine. Good evening, everyone. We received bids. We received bids for the work. The bids were in excess of the consultant's estimates and in excess of the money that were available. So what we would like is a motion to reject all those bids, and then we're going to ask that you also approve going out for rebid. So first, if you could move to reject all the bids
Move
for
it.
the reasons I stated.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, Ms. Fritzen, call the roll, please.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Lembrecht,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes, and then I'll put a motion out for the rebid.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Lembrecht,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Ms. Viveros, I'll let you keep the floor, and then we'll go to Mr. Desiderio shortly.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay.
Does the committee have any questions or concerns that they would like me to address?
Mr. Mayor, I have two things that I think would be appropriate to bring up during Ms. Viveros' report.
Please, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Viveros, I know there have been emails going out today in Nixles, but can you just clarify, under what circumstances residents should call, in terms of down wires, trees, et cetera, when they should call Maplewood Police Department, or when they should call DPW, and what numbers they should use?
In terms of what happens internally, you should call the number for the police department. It's the 762, 762-1234.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Correct.
So they should call 1234, not the 3400 number.
So typically what happens, you should, that's your go-to number, because what will happen is our police department will then enable our DPW and our fire departments to coordinate any tree removal, moving of wires, and also our DPW directly communicates with PSE&G. And actually at the moment, PSE&G is here with, in town with one of our sergeants, Sergeant Reeves, he's the head of our traffic bureau. So that's what typically happens. So we ask to call that one number so we don't confuse our residents. That's 973-762-1234.
And my other question is somewhat related. Thank you for that. Which is the PSE&G website has been down for much of the day, at least the afternoon. So what is the best way for people, if they're out of power or have down wires, to get information to make sure it gets to PSE&G?
I would ask that they contact our DPW. That's Paul Kittner, our director, and Cesar Riccardi, our superintendent of public works. I would shoot them an email, and we have direct contact with our regional person, and we'll get that information out to them. So we have our own distribution list that we put together. So that's what I would urge everyone. So Paul Kittner is PKITTNER at twp.maplewood.nj.us.
Thank you. And, you know, I appreciate the information, because I know there's a lot of people who, you know, are still without power. And also, I've heard from a number of people who are in situations similar to me at my house, where the power is on, but there's trees that are down and branches that are down that are on top of wires. And the you know, the wires at my house are actually sort of ripped from the side of the house and still connected, but are lying under a tree across a driveway. So even though the power is on, I want PSE&G to know that so they can address it. And I heard from someone in on Hilton Avenue who had a similar issue, and I saw a similar issue on Roosevelt just out walking earlier. So thank you for that information.
I would also urge everyone to call their individual insurance carriers, because some of this is affected, you know, they effectuate some of the assistance. I personally was affected by Sandy, and I had a similar issue, and you have to get all the constituents involved. So I would urge that everybody contact their carriers, especially if they have some electrical issues or down, you know, some external issues to the home that necessarily we can't touch, and nor do I think that PSE would be able to touch to go on their property, quite frankly. So in matters such as that, I would, you know, try to call your insurance carrier.
Mr. Mayor, can I add a couple things to that, please?
Sure, Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, sir. I'm seeing here in the chat room that Mr. Michalowski has advised, and it's good advice, that residents can also text to 47734 to 47734 to directly report to PSE&G. And I just want to add to the remarks already made that pursuant to an initial report that we received from our chief of police, there are over 70 locations in town with downed trees, affecting properties, down wires. So please, please, please be very, very careful. Stay inside, and please also be patient. Tomorrow is going to be, as Ms. Vivero said, a massive cleanup effort. So if you're out there walking the dog, greeting your neighbors with your mask and social distancing, of course, please be very, very careful, and also please be patient. This was a tornado winds, you know, this is a major, major storm, and we're going to get to everyone as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis.
Mr. Mayor, one more thing that, it looks like Ms. Veros has hand up, but I just wanted to know, in terms of township activities for tomorrow, in particular, the kids camps and other recreational camps, if they're going to be taking place tomorrow, because Ms. Davenport mentioned earlier that the lunch program won't be taking place tomorrow due to cleanup efforts. I'm just wondering if if there's any impact on our recreation programs for tomorrow.
So far in our buildings, that's the Woodland where we have our camp, and then D Hart where we have kids camp. Those are still resuming. We have generators as backup at both those buildings, so we'll be operating as usual. I just wanted to add to that, the 47734 number. One of the things is that you have to have your account hooked up or connected to that, because that's how you're going to get updates. So if you did not register your account, you might not get the same piece of information or the status update on what's going on in your home. So just as a heads up, especially if their website is down. But also not to discount the 5 JCP&L residents that we do have. We've put some resources up on our website with regard to JCP&L and what they've been doing.
Does anyone else would like to address Mr. Veros? All right. Seeing no, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have one more thing. We've been getting updates from New Jersey Transit with regard to ridership, and we've been also talking about some improvements over at the Baker Street lot. We have been trying to get their cooperation to get the lot done while we have a very low commuter turnout. And I have gotten a response from our New Jersey Transit people, and they've said that they're working to try to address that issue. Well, the redoing of the Baker Street lot. So I just wanted to update everybody. That was working to try to.
Thank you, Mr. Veros. I almost forgot. I'm glad you remembered. Thank you very much. And again, as Mr. Daff has communicated, just be patient. That's all we can ask. I drove around today. I talked with many families all over the community. I took some pictures. I posted on social media. We got hammered. I mean, that's the bottom line. And our DPW team and our fire and our police were out everywhere, all 4 corners of our township, and securing streets, sidewalks, front lawns, whatever the case may be. So just be patient. It's going to take some time. We're one town of 565, and a lot of towns, as we understand from the county communications that we receive, also are in bad shape. So it's going to take a little while. And also, I'll just say it now, instead of saying my report, is that our DPW will be coming around the next 3 to 4 days, the coming days, to help remove debris as if in leave pickup in some capacity. So if you want to put some of your debris in the burn or on the side of the road, DPW will hit all 6 zones in the coming days to address that. But be patient. Let's work together. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Veros. Mr. Desiderio, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I really have no report.
Thank you, Mr. Well, does anyone like to address Mr. Desiderio? Seeing no one, we'll move on. And thank you, Mr. Desiderio. Ms. Fritzen, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. So at the next meeting, the September 1st meeting, I plan to have some resolutions on the agenda for your consideration for the renewals of our ABC licenses for the term 2020 through 2021. And that's the plenary retail consumption licenses, the distribution licenses, and our 1 club license. So in the meantime, previous to any vote on the first would be the customary inspections that we make with the department heads. It is certainly your leverage time for property maintenance for licensees, which we take very seriously. And any other matters that they might be delinquent in. So look for that at the first meeting in September. The other thing I just wanted to touch upon was you're starting to see some events come through. We're getting groups and individuals applying for event applications. And I just wanted to say that, no one has made any promises when they make an event application submission It's taken into consideration. It's certainly distributed to the township committee members and our various township department heads and those that would be most affected with their comments. I really have not hosted in a while any of our event meetings, which have been really, really successful, because we really haven't had that many events, as we all know, but they're starting to trickle in now. But again, I think that we've been honest with people, that it'll be looked at, it'll be considered. It depends on what the governor's executive orders are, how many people we're talking about, and safety first. So I did want to bring that up to everybody, that we're fair. We take a really good, hard look at everything and what would be safe for the Township of Maplewood residents as far as any other participants that'll be at these events. My last item is that I'm still getting interest in cafes. Had a cafe application from a restaurant on Irvington Avenue, which was great because it's our first one. The sidewalk retail is now again picking up because of the reduction of individuals that can be inside. And the exercise classes, yoga, activities, businesses has been increasing. So we're trying to be fair about that as well, so that everybody has a chance to utilize our designated areas. That is all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Would anyone like to address Ms. Fritzen?
I would, Mayor. Unless Ms. Adams wants to go first.
Ms. Adams, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just want to thank you, Liz, for everything you just said about the event application. The public needs to know that it's an application. It's not a permit. You're actually applying for permission when you put in an event permit application. We've had some pushback recently, and you know, we're not going to supersede the governor's orders. We're not going to approve anything that we consider to be unsafe, and that'll come from either any member of the governing body or any department head who sees something wrong. So I just wanted to reemphasize your point there, because I think it was a really important one. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Fritzen, thank you again for your report. I wanted to shift your attention and a couple questions to our forthcoming elections. As you know, we're getting a lot of emails from residents who are sharing our concerns about the post office, people not getting their mail on time or not getting their mail at all. And how is this going to affect an election that is, although we don't have official word yet or any confirmation, probably going to be similar to what we went through during the primary election. In other words, a vote by mail election primarily. We are telling residents that to join us in what we are all doing at the governing body. We are reaching out to our federal representatives to urge them to fight back against efforts to defund the post office, which is causing massive staffing issues across the nation. But as it relates to the county, how are we doing in terms of following up with them about our experience during the primary and our advocacy as it relates to ensuring that we get vote by mail drop-off secure locations inside Maplewood for the general election?
Mayor, do you want me to take that, or you want to mention the
I'll take some of that and we can tag team it. So coming out of the primary election, Mr. Daffis, obviously, in our OEM meetings, we identified some grave concerns. And so Ms. Fritzen, Ms. Barbaro, and Mr. DeLuca created a narrative. I communicated their concerns up to the county level, you know, with the intent to have a meeting. It was communicated back to me that they wanted a narrative regarding their concerns before we had the meeting. So last week I sent that narrative and copied the aforementioned colleagues. I have not heard back from the county. I will follow up But what we want to do is have a meeting, sit down and express these concerns, which are inclusive of some of the things you've articulated, and see what solutions they have, such as obviously increasing the ability for drop off with boxes along those lines. There's no doubt that what we experienced will also be prevalent across multiple municipalities as well. But we're proactively trying to get these answers before we head into to November. Ms. Fritz, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would, Mayor, just that through the Essex County Clerks Association, I would have to say that there is no clerk or municipality in Essex County that disagrees in any way that every town should be covered with a minimum of a box for ballots at every town hall and at least one other location in each town, and not, for example, what we went through in Maplewood, where our closest ballot box was at Essex County Arena. That just was unacceptable. And we weren't the only town that was faced with that. So again, we all agree across the county and probably across the state, it probably was done that way for everybody, that it just wasn't fair the way Maplewood in particular was treated.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Mr. Daff, is any more questions for Ms. Fritzen or for myself?
No, thank you, Mayor, and I thank you both for your efforts in this regard. Really appreciated the integrity of our elections. I mean, there's nothing more important than that as we head into the so thank you both.
Agreed. Would anyone else like to address Ms. Fritzen? Hearing no one, Ms. Fritzen, thank you for your report. We'll now move on to agenda item number 17, reports from elected officials. I kind of gave a prelude, so Ms. Adams, you have the floor.
Sure, thank you. So I've been working a lot with Bob McCoy, who's chair of Environmental Advisory Committee lately on a couple of things. We've been meeting about pay as you throw. Mayor McGehee is also joining me on that little subcommittee, and we're diving into, just research right now on what other towns pay for garbage, recycling, and what we're paying, and trying to get a handle on if there's a way we can reduce our costs and therefore the costs to our residents. So that's an ongoing project we're working on. We're also on EAC. We met with Engineering Public Works regarding the maintenance and care of DeHart Organic Field. We've had historical issues with drainage problems there, and so we met with one of the companies that maintains it, and expert from Rutgers. So we're working on improving that situation once and for all, hopefully. I just wanted to reiterate what Ms. Davenport said with regard to the summer food service program, also available on Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. through August 21st, along with the food. The Maplewood South Orange School District is providing masks when they have them, and also school supplies and books. So keep an eye out for that for anyone who's going to get the grab and go food. Also March 18th, sorry, did I say that before too? I think I did. Oh well. August 18th is, as I said before, is the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, when Tennessee was the last state needed to ratify. We are having a watch party for anyone who wants to join. Obviously, it's remote. It'll be over. The technology is still being figured out, but after the movie, which is Knock Down the House, we'll have a discussion for about an hour after Q&A, and everybody provide their own refreshments at where they're watching from, and that should be a fun thing. We didn't want to let that anniversary pass without acknowledging it. So it's Tuesday night, August 18th at 7 o'clock and you can find it on Soma Celebrates Women Facebook page. And then lastly, I just want to advise, I meant to bring this up with Ms. Davenport with regard to the sad increase in the use, and in some instances necessary and others not, of disposables. Obviously, medical equipment, gloves and things like that are something we can't really control, but there is no proof that plastic bags, for example, are any safer than your reusable bags for shopping, for your groceries, or for whatever. It's also masks, the blue ones that a lot of people wear, while they're very convenient and maybe a little more comfortable, they're not recyclable, and so it's just adding. We're seeing, such a huge increase across the world in the amount of plastics that are now in the waste stream since COVID struck our world. So I just encourage people to be mindful of that and to not give up your green initiatives and your green practices because of COVID. We were making a lot of really positive strides. So I'd encourage wearing cloth masks that you can wash, and just, doing what you were starting to move toward doing in reusable and instead of disposable as much as possible. So that's my report, man.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to start my update with an update on senior matters in town. I haven't done that in quite some time. I'm going to share some really good news. We're so hard on ourselves all the time that we're not doing enough. Are we age-friendly enough? We compare ourselves to a lot of other communities, and I'm delighted to announce that we are getting a lot of notice across the state for our age-friendly initiatives, including some of our related programming. Our Repair Cafe, for instance, is very, very popular, and it's gotten the notice of the National Association of Area Agencies on Aging. Our local Essex County Division on Senior Services is one such agency. So it's a big deal. 5 other towns have reached out to us. They're going to follow suit. They want to know how to make it happen. This truly affirms our efforts. As per usual, we are leading across the state, and I'm delighted every time that I can underscore that Maplewood is leading, because that's what we do. Our emergency fund, our senior emergency fund, we've spent about $16,500 thus far, mostly toward food and supplies during the pandemic. We have about $8,000 left. We're seeing a drop in food insecurity or food needs, thankfully, but an increase in transportation needs, mostly for doctor visits. Doctors are reaching out. Primary care folks are saying, hey, don't forget about your doctor. It's safe. Come on back. And so seniors are using the fund through our GoGo grandparent transportation effort to get to their doctors safely. Speaking of transportation, we're discussing with REC about resuming our senior transportation. Forthcoming details on that in the coming days. Lots of opportunities for outdoor fun for our seniors. Yes, they were isolated. Yes, through Zoom all of this time, but there are outdoor opportunities. There was a great lunch with mobile trucks last week. I was not able to attend, or maybe it was earlier this week. I've lost track of time or day at this point. So please look out for updates and come on outside. Really, it's okay to come out outside with your mask and with proper social distancing. Our SOMA 2 Towns for All Ages coordinator search is still on. If you are out there and you have expertise and or are interested in public health, you're a social worker, you're a community health advocate, you're a sociologist and or related, please apply. We're looking for an additional person, and this posting will last until close of business on August 7th. To find out more details and to apply for yourself, please go to our website under employment opportunities. No, we're not replacing the great Kathy Rowe, by all means. We are adding to Kathy Rowe. 2 people to do to increase our age-friendly initiatives in Maplewood and South Orange, and we're really excited about that. We really want to salute and applaud our Senior Advisory Committee in Maplewood, which is doing some great advocacy on behalf of returning the senior freeze and the property homestead rebate that a lot of our seniors rely on. I don't have an update from Trenton about that, but I will provide that as soon as we get a greater insight rather as to what the governor is going to do as we get closer to his budget address at the end of August. Hey, look, come on outside and walk with us. The Springfield Avenue Partnership is pawning its walking map. It's exciting. Do a tour of our murals, find out about our new businesses that opened up, enjoy our beautiful parks on that side of town, and see your neighbors with masking and proper social distancing. Our Springfield Avenue walking map is out. Check it out. I want to say that we are partnering with St. Barnabas in some health lectures and presentations. The next one is about nutrition during COVID-19. You can find out about all of that stuff that I just talked about either through your newsletter, your SOMA 2 Towns for All Ages newsletter, which you are signed up to receive in print, or online, SOMA 2 Towns for All Ages.org. SOMA 2 Towns for All Ages.org. Please check it out. I want to highlight that the CCR, the Community Coalition on Race, in collaboration with La Casa Pedro in Newark, is providing a very important informative webinar tomorrow evening starting at 6 p.m. on evictions and foreclosures. Know your rights. Find out how you can get help. There's no shame in getting help. Yours truly will be participating and or providing any additional information and support that I can using the state employee hat that I wear in housing at the Department of Community Affairs. Maplewood Village. Maplewood Village. Oh, you can find out about the La Casa Pedro eviction and foreclosure webinar that CCR is hosting on their website, communitycoalitiononrace.org. Maplewood Village, we talked about reinforcing our contact tracing efforts at the restaurants. Again, please remind them to get your name and phone number and certainly participate when they ask you to. It's really important. Also, starting this weekend, I think someone earlier alluded to this, we will be providing some music to serenade our diners and create some sort of festive atmosphere in the village on Friday nights and Saturday nights from 6:30 to 8:30 during our pedestrian mall hours at 2 locations. We're starting at PCB Bank on the sidewalk there, the curb out, and by the old stationer spot on Highland. Of course, we are coordinating these efforts with our public health officer. We will be, as she mentioned earlier, social distancing, and our social ambassadors will be present to remind people to enjoy, but to move along, not to congregate. We're not creating concerts in the village. We are not, just some entertainment. Community Board on Police. We have a meeting tomorrow night, as I mentioned earlier. Please join us. Find out how to access that Zoom link on our website. We meet the first Wednesday of every month, unless otherwise noted, at 7:30 p.m. Everyone is welcome. So please join us. Policing is important right now. We're discussing a lot of things. And as we mentioned earlier, we are interviewing applicants for the 2 open adult seats and the 1 youth member seat on the board. And we had put a posting out there and we received a really strong pool of applicants. Almost 20 applicants applied. Lots of great experience represented and diversity represented, young, old, and all kinds from our community. These are your neighbors who are signing up to serve in this very important effort. So keep that in mind. They are your neighbors, young and old, and we're looking forward to interviewing applicants on Thursday evening, starting at 7:30 p.m. We meaning the Township Committee. The final thing I want to talk about, Mayor, I'm going to open this up a little bit for discussion, if you will, with you and others if they wish. It's about our Wi-Fi pilot, and it addresses something that someone earlier said. Why are you spending money providing computers to the police when you ain't doing that to the community? Well, guess what? We are the township in our participatory budgeting initiative, which I championed a couple years back. The winning proposal, led by, directed by, put together by the community itself, our Soma Justice great group of advocates in particular, is the Wi-Fi pilot. We are going to connect households in the Seth Boyden neighborhood and surrounding area. We are going to bridge the gap there. We're going to connect households who are not currently connected. I'm reporting that while we have a vendor, we've spent almost $100,000 in putting all the necessary infrastructure in place, but we have yet to make a single connection. And that is because connecting with folks in that part of town has proven a little bit more difficult than we thought initially. Obviously, during the pandemic, people are in lockdown. They're not answering calls or door knocks, certainly not for government officials. A lot of folks in that area, a lot of our households, English is not their first language. And there is a reasonable mistrust with everything that's going on in our nation of government officials knocking on their doors and saying, hey, we're providing you free access. And their response is, no, thank you. What are you trying to do? What do you want in response? So because this is a collaborative effort with the school district, I want to report tonight that we are working with our social workers at the school district who know these households, who deal with them. These households are comfortable receiving communications from them in getting us people connected. And we're rushing to get this done as the new school year is fast approaching in some sort of fashion, certainly a hybrid of in-person and virtual. And we recognize the very important need to get people connected very quickly. And we're excited to expand this because Governor Murphy announced recently a statewide Bridge the Gap effort. We don't know what that looks like yet, what kinds of grants local school districts can apply for, but certainly a good chunk of money was set aside for this effort. So hopefully at the next Township Committee meeting on the 1st of September, I will report that we have our first few connections. And that's my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis, and thank you for bringing that up publicly. We are. I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Oh, go
wait.
ahead, Ms. Adams.
Are we having? I thought on my calendar that our interviews were at 6 on Thursday, because I have something at 7:30.
Did I say 7:30?
Yeah.
6 is correct. 6 is correct.
7:30, scratch that. We're starting at 6. Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Just because okay, because I was like, wait, what? Okay.
My apologies.
Yeah, 6 o'clock this coming Thursday. And no, just really quickly, I was just going to say thank you for bringing up the Wi-Fi pilot. It's been a daunting really initiative, really. And thank you to you and Mr. DeLuca and Mr. Desiderio and to many other people involved. And it is aligning with us trying well before recent events to really help our community bridge that digital divide. We've had huge events at the high school, 2 years ago, talking about digital divide, brought in speakers from all over the country, including the president of Howard University. So, I'm not into gotcha moments, honestly. So I do appreciate you bringing that up and the relevance that we are focused on the community as well. So thank you, Mr. Daffis. Mr. DeLuca, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 4 things. We had planned this Sunday to have an event celebrating the Black Lives Matters road striping in Maplewood and South Orange at the border there near the high school. Due to the uptick in COVID-19 cases in the state, the concern that the governor has raised about bringing people together, we've decided to postpone that, so it's not going to be this Sunday. We're going to look at a time in the future when hopefully we'll have a little more comfort in bringing people together. So there will be no Black Lives Matter event this Sunday. On August 13th, which is Thursday, we are going to have a Zoom meeting to talk about the Van Ness Terrace speed humps. And you'll be able to access that Zoom information on our website. So we've been talking to the neighbors there, and typically what we do is try to have a public meeting with the residents so that they're on board with the traffic calming proposals that we're putting forward. We also are in mid-August going to have a meeting of our steering committee for Prospect Street. Our consultants have come up with some applications for the various intersections along Prospect, and we'll be presenting it to the steering committee for their input. And then we'll have a public meeting in early September. And lastly, I want to announce that we now have Music Mondays at the market, at the farmer's market on Monday from 4:30 to 6. We have music to shop by. So you can pick up your fruits and vegetables and pickles and baked goods and hear some music at the same time. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. Mr. Limbrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, it was brought to my attention that during when we were going through before some of the ordinances and resolutions, I was having some connectivity problems, and some of the votes that I thought I got in may not have been recorded. So I'd like to ask unanimous consent that, to the extent not already recorded, my yes votes on ordinances 3003-20, 3002-20, 3004-20, and resolutions 186-20 and 195-20 be recorded in the record and reflected in the official votes on those motions taken earlier tonight. Mr. Mayor, without objection?
No objection whatsoever.
Thank you. So I'll just ask Ms. Fritzen to reflect that. Thank you. My only other item is just to mention that the D Hart basketball court has now been fully completed, fully striped, and it looks great. I was there just on Saturday with my colleagues. And we, at the end of the census parade, we finished there and we're able to interact with some of the basketball players. I will only report that the mayor made his last shot.
Careful.
He made the last shot. But it looks great, and I'd really like to, it's getting a lot of use as we expected it would, and I'd just like to request that all of our residents, and particularly the folks who are using the basketball court, help us in keeping it looking great. Clean up after yourselves. Please use the trash and recycling receptacles that are provided. We're working on getting more over there, but please, put your water bottles and any trash in the appropriate receptacles there so that we can keep that facility looking great. It's really a gem. And, as someone, who's been the liaison to the Recreation Advisory Committee for the past few years, that held a number of public meetings and did a lot of work to bring that to fruition. I can tell you that the Recreation Advisory Committee met last week and everyone is thrilled. Those who haven't already been over there are planning to make a special trip over to see it. And it's so wonderful to see that facility in D Hart Park and being used by so many people of all ages in our community. It's exactly what we wanted. And it will probably go down as one of the things that I'm most proud of that we did as a township committee and as a township during my tenure. So just want to let everyone know that it's open. Go over there, use it. and help us keep it clean. And Mr. Mayor, that is my report.
Thank you, Mr. Limbrick. Yes, I definitely did some Mason work over there after our census parade. And to that point, I just want to recognize this past Saturday, and I want to thank my colleagues here tonight, as well as DPW, our police, as well as our fire departments, for their efforts in regards to, and also our census committee, for their efforts regarding our census parade. It was something we put together quite quickly based on communication from the county, but we were able to really parade through 2 key tracks in our 6 tracks here in Maplewood that are performing below average in terms of responding to the U.S. Census. The U.S. Census is still ongoing. It's going to be running, I believe I heard on NPR, I think through October now. But that being said, a week from today rather, their census takers will be knocking on doors. So if you haven't had a chance to, fulfill your census obligation, do it online, or even if you received a paper communication, although with the post office, that could be risky at this point. Please do your best. We take this very seriously. This is an opportunity for us everyone to be counted, as we've said before, and it really impacts the money that we receive from a federal level. It also represents who represents us in DC. So, there's ever a time where every person really, really counts. It is during our U.S. Census. I think tonight we've heard some great things that are happening in our township from my colleagues, from events related to the 100th anniversary, of the ratification, to events for our seniors, to events regarding public safety, and to recreational events. And a lot of things that I was going to talk about have already been covered. So the one thing I will briefly discuss, and then we'll move on, is I just wanted to communicate that it was 2 weeks ago that the Township Committee, voted in favor of extending the active status for auxiliary police, including emergencies for 90 days. We communicated our commitment to do a complete assessment, not only of our auxiliary program, but holistic view of policing in Maplewood. So during this period, and as a result of that communication, we've reached out to our chiefs to receive a list of data information, which we're interested in obtaining in order to conduct this assessment. These things include and are not limited to the auxiliary charter and SOPs, standard operating procedures, recruitment process background, how auxiliary officers are chosen, what is the application process, what is the selection process. Auxiliary training, training programs recently provided, i.e. unbiased training or residents with special needs, the methods in which they are provided, the number of hours which an officer must accumulate, and the retaining cadence in that regard. Disciplinary processes and procedures. Our auxiliary officers subject to the same procedures outlined in the PBA, even though they're not union technically. Access to disciplinary records. Do they have jackets like our fellow officers? Information regarding whether the auxiliary was or has been subject to any of our force reporting. An exhaustive list of tasks and responsibilities assigned. Average number of hours clocked on a monthly basis and what type of assignments they relate to. The tenure of our current officers and that are members, and are there any term limits? Costs associated with the auxiliary, inclusive of uniforms, training, and firearms. And then our current communication program information as it relates to auxiliary police, inclusive of our current website or websites. And then finally, the PBA bylaws. So from as we met as a subcommittee, essentially, our timeline is at this point now we're in the data and fact gathering stage, as I just communicated. After that, we'll do some internal debriefing and then quickly move to external debriefing or public forum. We're going to talk about some things. We're going to talk about, how the town is policed and how it feels to be policed in this town as well. So I just wanted to follow up. I thought it was important for the public to know that after 2 weeks ago, after our conversation, that we are active, we are moving forward, and we will keep you abreast at every township committee meeting and the in-committee meetings moving forward. That is my report, and thank you. Okay, now if I can find my place in my notes. We are now moving on to, I believe, our discussion items. Our first discussion item, as I'm literally going through my notes here, is agenda item 18. It's discussion items. Mr. Limbrick, you have discussion item number 1.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Discussion items number 1 and 2 are actually similar, and I think we can probably discuss them together, even though it will be 2 separate resolutions. And these relate to Juneteenth. And there's been a substantial amount of activity from advocates and now from our elected representatives at the state level in Trenton to recognize Juneteenth as a state holiday, and also to include education about Juneteenth into the mandatory curriculum for our schools here in New Jersey. So there's Senate Bill 19 and Assembly Bill 4315 would designate the 3rd Friday in June a state and public holiday as Juneteenth. And just so people know, the impact of a state holiday is that schools would be closed. There would be, employees would have the day off of work. And state holidays are often seen as a sort of a precursor in some cases to recognition as a federal holiday. And there's a number of states right now, including New Jersey, that are moving forward to make Juneteenth the state holiday. And if enough states do that, hopefully the momentum will be there as soon as the next Congress to make it a federal holiday. Just an update on the status of these. I believe it was last Thursday, it was late last week, that both of these votes went through the Assembly and the Senate and passed overwhelmingly, nearly unanimously in both houses. So we're now just awaiting, my understanding is just awaiting the governor's signature to go into law. So barring any bump in the road there, unforeseen, Juneteenth will be a holiday here in the state of New Jersey starting next year. So the first item would be a resolution supporting those 2 bills, which, like I said, have already been passed, but haven't yet been signed. So they'd like to support those. The second is a resolution supporting the bills which are at an earlier stage down in Trenton, are still haven't been voted on, or are still being sent to committee and need to be approved. But and those are Senate Bill 2711 and Assembly Bill 4449. And those would require school districts in New Jersey to include instruction on the significance of Juneteenth as part of the implementation of the New Jersey Student Learning Standards in Social Studies. So this would incorporate Juneteenth as a mandatory part of the social studies curriculum for students at all levels in New Jersey. And I think we should show our support for that. So I guess I'm proposing those 2 resolutions, the resolution supporting S19 and A4315, designating Juneteenth a state and public holiday, and a resolution supporting S2711 and A4449 about Juneteenth in schools. Mr. Mayor, I don't know if there's any other discussion on that, but I'd like to make a motion on both of those.
I'd second both.
I'll move them both. There you go. Perfect. Awesome. Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Udafis,
Enthusiastic, yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Limbrick. 2 great resolutions there. Okay, I guess we'll now shift down to discussion items 3 and 4. Mr. DeLuca, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. 3 is pretty simple. We supported Senate Bill 2656, which makes certain police records accessible to the public as an open public record through the Open Public Records Act. Assembly 4238 is just a companion bill in the Assembly, so I would move the support there, just so that we're parallel in both the Senate and the Assembly.
I'd second that.
Yeah. Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll for number 3.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen.
And the second item I have here is, we've been following the efforts by Newark to have a strong civilian review board. They were sued by the Fraternal Order of Police. The case is now, I guess it's before the Supreme Court. Certainly, we're not going to be able to do anything with the case, but based on the meetings I've had with the Youth Coalition, the Maplewood Youth Coalition, they felt it was important for us to take a position, and I agree that we ought to take a position in support of Newark's effort to strengthen the Civilian Review Board. I think it is critical that they have as strong a board as possible so that as towns like us, we can take a look at that and decide what parts of it we want. But right now, we're not able to do so much because of the imbalance of power between the police unions and the citizens. So I would like to just have the Township Committee provide a statement of support for Newark's attempt to establish this the strong Civilian Review Board with subpoena power.
I second that.
Agreed. Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes, and so then, Mr. DeLuca, we should post more in this meeting, work on that statement, and then we can it appropriately and publicize that.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to discussion items 5 and 6. Mr. Daffis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. We already, you afforded me the privilege of making remarks in support of number 5. We all voted unanimously, in support thereof. So I'm not going to say anything further other than to highlight that with this support, we are the first municipality in Essex County to do this, which is a big deal. Again, always delighted to say that Maplewood is leading the way in something so critical and important. And this is another example of that. We are not the first in New Jersey, I'm afraid. Tom's River beat us to the punch. But we're there, and I want to alert you and the rest of our colleagues that I will be joining a coalition to make sure that other municipalities here in Essex and throughout the state join the effort so that we can send that strong support back to Washington. With respect to number 6, support for A 4226, mortgage forbearance for homeowners and landlord-tenant protection during COVID, otherwise known as the People's Bill. So currently, there is no legislation out there from the Golden Dome, from our legislators, that addresses the dire situation that we are in New Jersey. In other words, fast approaching an eviction and foreclosure cliff this fall, when the eviction and foreclosure moratorium comes to an end eventually. Gratefully, the governor extended the state of emergency this past Saturday, so that pushes the moratorium off to the end of October, which means that evictions and foreclosures may not begin any sooner than November 2nd, that first Monday. But when they do, how are people going to handle it? How are renters going to pay back the rent that they owe due to unemployment due to COVID? How are homeowners going to pay back their mortgages? Even those who have suspended their payments during COVID successfully. Again, thanks to the governor's protections that he put in place during the pandemic. This bill is the only bill that provides a comprehensive, sustainable, and reasonable repayment measure. It tells tenants that they have, for every month that they owe, an extended period of time to repay. It requires landlords who receive the money in return to agree not to evict. And the same is true for the foreclosures. It's that simple. Now, this bill has gone through many amendments. In its current form, I would say, frankly, and other housing advocates would agree, who are bigger experts than I am at this, that this is what we have right now is pretty watered down as it is. So we can't afford it to go away. We certainly cannot afford to do nothing. And there is bipartisan support for this bill. This bill passed unanimously through the Assembly the other day on Friday afternoon. It is led by a sponsor, prime sponsor is Assemblywoman Timberlake from East Orange, our neighbor, awesome Brittany Timberlake. And it is a compromise bill. A former Senate counterpart led by Senator Singleton was folded into this. The governor's office has been very close working with housing advocates on this bill. So what we need now is the Senate to move it forward. And we know that big pockets are out there whispering in Senate leadership's ears to destroy this bill for a lot of different reasons. We have to get this done. It's called the People's Bill, not only because it's going to help a lot of different people in New Jersey. It's called the People's Bill because over 20, Mayor and colleagues, 20 community organizations drafted this bill. It wasn't some legislator in some office in Trenton alone, not informed by what's happening on the ground, but it was through the collective and painstaking, I might add, because I've been on some of these calls, efforts of 20 community organizations. So I think this is the right thing to do. It's not perfect by any means. It's not going to help as many people as it should by any means. But let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and let's do the right thing. Let's support A4226 and send a message to our Senate leadership to move this to a full Senate vote in support. I move it.
I'll second it. Any discussion? Okay, please call the roll, President.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and thank you, Mr. Daffis. That concludes our discussion items for this evening. We'll now move on to agenda item number 19, which is our consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, could we, and Mr. Lembrick, who usually does this, could we take out number 2, resolution number 185-20 and vote on it separately? I just wanted to say a couple of things in light of what was my public comment earlier, if I may.
I have no problem with that. May I get a motion, Mr. Lembrick, for consent agenda items 1 and then 3 through 20?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move items 1 and 3 through, I actually think it may be 21, or maybe it's 20, yeah, but through the approval of closed session minutes for July 21, 2020.
Yep.
Second.
Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes, and thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Yeah, it's 20, and we can talk about that offline. You'll see it there. Okay, I'll now entertain a motion to approve resolution number 185-20. And I'll get a motion. We'll have a discussion after that. May I get a motion first?
So moved.
Second.
Can we have a discussion? Any discussion?
Please, Mayor, and thank you. I'll start off and I invite Mr. Lambert to join me, and any other member of the governing body. Yourself included, Mayor. You know, one of our community advocates spoke earlier about their reservation to support the police, and in this case, the computer equipment, which comes to anywhere between $55,000. And why not support computers going to the community, which we talked about through our Wi-Fi pilot. You know, it's a really important concern. So I want to take a moment to pause here and address it. It is an important concern. As Mr. DeLuca mentioned in our previous public session, our marathon session for 4+ hours, we are all committed, I think, we are all unanimously committed to looking at our policing budget for 2021. It's important for the community to understand that this expenditure tonight has already been appropriated for the 2020 budget, and this resolution just makes it official. But beyond that, right? Because that's a cop-out. Beyond that, I want the community to understand how important this technology is, because this technology enables the officers to do their jobs, but guess what else it does? It enables the community to check on the police as to whether or not they're doing their jobs. One of the things that the Community Board on Police does very effectively and successfully is it requests data. Who's calling the police? Where are we doing traffic stops? Where are there uses of force, et cetera, et cetera? All very important considerations as we continue our community dialogue toward better policing in our community. We can't get that data from the police unless they have proper access to technology. So that money here is ultimately in the community's best interest. So that is what I wanted to say, Mayor, as I moved resolution number 185-20 in support of the purchase of computer equipment for the Maplewood Police Department. Thank you, sir.
Second,
and Mr. Mayor, I've already seconded it, but I'll just add that, our employees, regardless of what department they're in, they need the right technology and they need the right equipment to do their jobs. And the police, and in order to do their jobs, in order to keep track of their records, in order to produce records when they're requested, as Deputy Mayor Daffis mentioned, and also to keep our community safe, they need technology that's going to allow them to run a smooth, efficient department, just as our fire department, our engineering department, our clerk's office. Computers are at this point and have been for decades a very essential workplace. It's a workplace necessity, and we can't have a workplace without it. Our deputy administrator, Mr. Michalowski, has also told me that what we're replacing in terms of the computers at headquarters are mostly Windows 7 computers, which are no longer supported this year, as of January of 2020. And if they remain in service, we'd be exposed to ransomware attacks and other security vulnerabilities. And if there's no place in the township where we want our records and data exposed to ransomware attacks and security vulnerabilities. But, if there's a place where we really need to make sure our data is secure, it needs to be at the police headquarters, where there's a lot of very sensitive data held about our residents and others that, would certainly be very damaging to people if it were to be compromised. So we need to provide our police with the ability to do their job, and the folks who administer at headquarters the ability to do their job, but also to protect the data there, and we need new machines to do that. And as the deputy mayor mentioned, this is not really a new expenditure tonight. This is just a formal approval to proceed on money that we'd already allocated. And this is part of the standard computer upgrades that we do all over the township, at town hall, at the police department, at our libraries, et cetera. So I'll certainly be voting yes.
Thank you, Mr. Limbrick. I think you nailed on the head. The equipment is over 10 years old, doesn't take any more Windows upgrades. That means it's inadequate, it's out of compliance with the state, which means that we cannot do our jobs and protect our citizens in any capacity. That means we won't get access to records or security requirements because we won't have access to servers. So information that will be provided to other municipalities around us would not be provided to us. It would impact our DMV records. So this is a must. And, and that's just the bottom line. So I'm a voting yes as well. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Limbrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We'll now move on to agenda item number 20, our public comment on any subject matter, again, limited to 3 minutes. Glenn, you now have the floor.
All right. If anyone has public comment, just please use the raise your hand function. Oh, there we go. Let's go. If the upgrade worked, it did. Go ahead, Lila, you're on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Lila Gold. I'm assuming I don't need to give my address.
No, it was recorded when you registered.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to talk about the your one of your discussion items previously, and it was the second one, the regarding Juneteenth celebrated not only as a holiday but taught about in schools. And I understand that you passed that anonymously, but I just want to address the item a little bit more. So I understand that curriculum change is most often done through the state and or Board of Ed, but I want to address and encourage the support of those two bills, which you already committed to. So, but additionally, as a student, I would like to emphasize not only the implementation of Juneteenth studies and Black history, specifically as a part of the Amistad curriculum, but I also want to encourage the township and public to support the inclusion of Black and intersectional subjects throughout all topics and curriculums within the entire district. We want to go past social studies in the Amistad curriculum to focus on widespread curriculum change. The students should not have to demand to be taught the truth, but we will continue to in the name of an anti-racist and equitable future. So I just want to encourage all of you to support any upcoming curriculum change efforts regarding not just Juneteenth and Black history, but all intersectional efforts in different subjects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got two more, Mayor. Let me just. Sylvie Schutz.
Yes, hello. I'm Sylvie Schutz, and I just wanted to quickly vocalize, just kind of going back to a discussion that was brought up by Mayor McGehee earlier about the auxiliary force in the next 90 days. I'm from the MAPSA Youth Coalition, and I'll be representing us tonight. So the MAPSA Youth Coalition has met with Committeeman Lembrick and Committeeman DeLuca in the past week to discuss the nature of the next 90 days of consideration regarding disarming the auxiliary police force in Maplewood. The coalition inquired about their commitments to research and discussion and engaged in a discussion about such. We've also now heard from Mayor McGehee and appreciate the update. In the name of transparency and community involvement, we ask for public clarification on what the next 90 days of suspension will look like, and request that commitments currently made by Mayor McGeehee, Deputy Mayor Daffis, and Committeewoman Adams be made explicit. Furthermore, we request consistent communication regarding this matter to ensure accountability and public knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got one more, Mayor. Edgar Galvis.
Yes, good evening, everyone. With the increase of the number of at-large members on the Community Board of Police from 4 to 6 for a total of 9 board members, would a new application deadline be set for new candidates to apply, or would the board select from the previous pool of candidates who recently applied by the July 1st, 2020 deadline?
Mr. Mayor, I can handle that if it's okay. So Mr. Galvis, thank you for your question. The application, the call for applications that we put out earlier this summer was actually done with the expectation that we would be increasing the size of the board, and that's the reason at the time that there were we didn't have seats open, so it was done with the understanding that we would be moving forward, and we just completed that tonight. And as Deputy Mayor Daffis referenced earlier, we had a very robust response to that call for applications. We had nearly 20 applicants for the positions. We've narrowed that down to finalists who are going to be interviewed starting and hopefully with decisions made in the next couple of days. So it was the earlier deadline was the deadline to apply for these positions. However, anyone who wants to be considered going forward as positions may open up or as members' terms finish and are up for reappointment, can certainly go ahead and submit those application materials at any time. You don't have to wait for an official call for application, but when we know there's going to be a position or multiple positions open, we do put out sort of a public call just so people know that those positions are out there. But in the interim, it's too late to apply for these two that we'll be interviewing for starting in the next few days from the pool that already applied, but people can still submit applications to be considered going forward for the next round, whenever that may be, likely later this year or early next year.
Mayor, if I can add to that.
Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, sir. As Mr. Lundberg said, we invite folks to send in their applications because the board is looking into how to engage volunteers, ambassadors of the board in the community, liaisons to the community, to spread the word about the board's work and to report back to the board about what's happening in the community. As soon as we can get through the pandemic a little bit and be more confident in community events, we want to start having those, and we could really use volunteers. And the board is we'll be discussing on Wednesday night. And again, you're welcome to join us. The information about is on the website. We start at 7:30 the first Wednesday of every month. Join us. You can find out how we're looking to engage volunteers. So please, 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 if you're interested in this effort, this community important effort, don't wait for a full voting board membership opportunity to come forward. Apply now so that you can be considered as a volunteer in the near short term. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis. Mr. Misalowski, anyone else?
No, there's no more public comment, Mayor.
Wonderful. All right. And as Mr. Daffis mentioned, obviously we have a volunteer form which you can leverage, not just for the Community Board on Police, but for any committee here in the Township of Maplewood. Okay, we will now move on to our 21st and final agenda item, which is adjournment. Can I get a motion?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. See everyone on September 1st, and that was under 3 hours.
Good night, everyone.
Congratulations.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.